Dear Professor David Harel, President of the Israeli Academy of Sciences and Humanities, dear Professor Steven Pinker, dear Academy members, and dear audience here and online. I was trained to say online. I'm pleased and honored to open the 2024 annual Darwin Lecture of the Israeli Academy of Sciences and Humanities. I invite Professor David Harel, President of the Academy, to deliver his introductory remarks. David, bevakasha.
Good evening, everyone. So I, too, am delighted to welcome you all to the annual Charles Darwin Memorial Lecture hosted by the Israel Academy of Sciences and Humanities. It is an honor to have you all here, both in person and those who are online, now or later on, as we gather to celebrate the legacy of one of the most influential scientists in history. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Professor Steven Pinker from Harvard University. Professor Pinker, or Steve, if I may, your presence here today is a testament to your unwavering commitment to science and the pursuit of knowledge. We are truly grateful that you have chosen to join us here in Israel during these complex times, and your support for the Israeli academic community is warmly and deeply appreciated. It is not to be taken for granted, especially when there are many abroad who would seek to boycott Israeli science and academia. Many thanks go to Professor Yadin Dudai, who will chair this evening's event, and who headed the Darwin Lecture Committee together with Academy members Professor Yoel Rak and Professor Yossi Loya, is he here? And the Academy staff, without whom none of this could take place, Batsheva Shor, Nama Shiloni, Kochi Maimran, Yossi Shweid, Michael Zaguri, and our wonderful CEO, Galia Finzi. Ladies and gentlemen, the Darwin Lecture is a most welcome addition to our two long-established memorial lecture series, the Albert Einstein Lecture, administered by our Sciences Division, and the Martin Buber Lecture, administered by the Humanities Division. Martin Buber was, of course, not only a world-renowned philosopher and scholar, but also the Academy's first president. The Darwin Lecture series, now in its second year, is intended to cover topics spanning both of our divisions, including the environment, evolution, climate and biology, but also the social and intellectual aspects that they raise. It serves as a platform to explore the far-reaching impact of Darwin's theory of evolution and its relevance to various fields of study. By bringing together brilliant minds as lecturers, we aim to foster a deeper understanding of the scientific principles that shape our world and to inspire the next generation of researchers. After a long delay caused by the COVID pandemic, the first Darwin Lecture was finally delivered last year by Professor Richard Dawkins, who, like you, Professor Pinker, has made significant contributions to the field of evolutionary biology. In fact, it would be fascinating to try to figure out how his ideas on the selfish gene and the concept of memes relate to your own research on the evolution of human cognition and the role of reason in shaping our world. And as long as we are on the topic of reason and mull over the shaping of the world, we cannot go further without saying something about what is happening here in our neck of the woods and to try to relate to the shockwaves it is sending around the world. The basic facts, ladies and gentlemen, are crystal clear. Hamas carried out the most horrifying massacre here on October 7, exactly 7 months ago today, and a terrible war is being waged in the Gaza Strip ever since. There are still 133 hostages in the Hamas dungeons, the vast majority of which are no longer alive, and tens of thousands of Gazans have been killed in the interim, a fact that appears to be all but absent from our local news coverage here in Israel. For 7 months, no clear, reasonable, and achievable goals for the war have been decided upon by our government, so that terrifyingly, no end of it is yet in sight. One of the appalling results of this is the fact that we have somehow managed to virtually eradicate the profound show of shock, empathy, and friendship that the world at large exhibited towards us in the immediate aftermath of October 7. It being all but replaced by fury and rage, riots on campuses, political isolation, and many, many disturbing signs of painful boycotts. Of these, the deeply troubling campus events, mainly in the USA, are directly relevant to science and academia. They attract extensive and often biased news coverage, capture the public's attention big time, and result in the flames growing ever higher. What are the protesters therein calling for? What claims are they making, and how should Israelis somehow respond to them? I would like to suggest the following differentiation between three separate narratives, all of which can be heard clearly and usually very, very loudly too. This division is obviously oversimplified, perhaps even naively simplistic, but I think it might help make the point. Narrative number one, anti-Semitisms. The Jews must go away, to put the demand mildly. Narrative number two, anti-Israelism. The state of Israel must go away. This is put very mildly too. The third narrative, anti what Israel is doing. Israel's current government must go away. My point is this: we must fight against the first two of these with all our might, something with which I think no one here would disagree. However, my personal view is that we should fight at least as vehemently in favor of the third. I'm a computer scientist, and I'm not saying that I have an algorithm for making all this go away, but I firmly believe that pulling the rug out from under the third of these narratives is a crucial first step, a necessary condition, but not necessarily a sufficient one. And in a world where politics and ideology often threaten to overshadow scientific progress, it is now more important than ever to emphasize that science must remain above such divisions and disagreements. In the wake of World War II, science offered considerable hope. The founding of CERN, for example, in Geneva, was an example of science being above political and state-based disputes. Science constitutes the lingua franca common to researchers around the globe, and it serves as a bridge over the troubled waters of contradicting opinions and seemingly incomparable goals. Now, my friends, is the time to return with new fervor to the science is universal approach. Indeed, the pursuit of knowledge knows no borders, thriving, as it were, on productive collaboration and the free exchange of ideas. We must use the tools of science and the rationality of its thought processes to help bring about a better future for humankind. Academic boycotts and attempts to isolate Israeli researchers and intellectuals only serve to hinder the advancement of science and culture and ultimately harm us all. This must be made clear to everyone with whom we come in contact abroad. Steve, Professor Pinker, if I may, your groundbreaking work on the interplay between rationality and irrationality is particularly relevant in these times. As you have so eloquently argued, the success of our species has depended on our ability to use reason and knowledge to navigate the complexities of the world around us. Yet we must also remain vigilant against the cognitive biases and fallacies that can lead us astray. In the faces of challenges and uncertainties, let us draw inspiration from the words of Marie Curie, two-time winner of the Nobel Prize, who said, quote, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less." End of quote. Through the power of science and the pursuit of understanding, we can overcome the obstacles that confront us and build a brighter future for us all. It seems only right to close with John Steinbeck's wonderful saying, again I quote, This I believe, that the free, exploring mind of the individual human is the most valuable thing in the world. And this I would fight for, the freedom of the mind to take any direction it wishes undirected. And this I must fight against, any idea, religion, or government which limits or destroys the individual. Thank you all very much. Thanks again to you, Professor Pinter, for honoring us, and I wish us all a wonderful evening.
תודה, David. Thank you, David. I translate. The 2024 annual Darwin lecture, entitled The Evolution of Rationality and Irrationality, will now be delivered by Professor Steven Pinker. This is clearly one of those cases in which the audience came to listen to the speaker and not to the person who delays gratification with an introduction. I will therefore be very brief. I cannot cover your entire career in 5 minutes. Steven Pinker is the Johnstone Family Professor of Psychology at Harvard University. By his own definition, he is an experimental psychologist interested in all aspects of language, mind, and human nature. This is taken from your site. He conducts research on a variety of topics in psychology and cognitive science, including common knowledge, things that everyone knows, or we hope everyone knows, language acquisition, emotion, moral sense, rationality, and trends in violence. And the last one is specially formulated for this period, unfortunately. He has contributed remarkably to the literature, scientific literature in the fields of computational theories of the mind, evolutionary psychology, and the human state. But above all, he is a rare, original, outspoken intellectual who charts how new territories of knowledge and understanding and expresses them and his ideas clearly and boldly. Steven Pinker was born in Montreal, Quebec, to a middle-class secular Jewish family. His grandparents immigrated to Canada from Poland and Romania in the 1920s and owned a small necktie factory in Montreal. His father was a lawyer and his mother a counselor and a high school vice principal. Pinker graduated from McGill University in 1976 with a BA in psychology and received a PhD in experimental psychology in 1979 from Harvard University under the mentorship of Stephen Koslin. And I was very grateful for your papers at that time because I learned a lot from them on imagery and on memory of imagery, which I tried to use. He did research at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology for a year, then became a professor at Harvard and later Stanford University. From 1982 till 2003, Pinker taught at the Department of Brain and Cognitive Sciences at MIT, was the co-director of the Center for Cognitive Science, and eventually became the director of the Center for Cognitive Neuroscience. Since 2003, he has been serving as the Johnstone Family Professor of Psychology at Harvard, and he also held the title of Harvard College Professor in recognition of his dedication to teaching. He is also a visiting professor at the New College of Humanities in London. Pinker has authored many highly cited academic papers. I managed to find citations that exceed 120,000, but I think there are more than that, and several influential books, each exploiting different aspects of human cognition, language, psychology, and societal development. Among them, The Language Instinct, that argues that humans are born with an innate capacity for language. Pinker uses evidence from developmental psychology, neurology, and linguistics to support the idea that the language is a fundamental part of the human genetic endowment. The Blank State, the modern denial of human nature, 2002, in which Pinker challenges the notion of the mind as a blank state, shaped solely by the environment, and argues for an innate human nature influenced by genetic and evolutionary processes. The Stuff of Thought, 2007. This book examines how language reflects human nature, looking at how the words we use reveal our thought, emotion, and the underlying mechanisms of cognition. The better angels of our nature, I'm still looking for them. Pinker presents a comprehensive history of violence and humanity, arguing that violence has in fact declined over long periods due to the influence of culture, governance, and human reasoning. And I'm adhering to the long period here. Enlightenment Now, 2018, Pinker makes a case for reason, science, humanism, and progress, arguing that Enlightenment values have led to significant global improvement in health, prosperity, safety, peace, and happiness, and rationality. What is it? Why it seems scarce? Why it matters? 2021, which is directly related to today's talk. Pinker was awarded many prestigious awards and accolades and was chosen by a number of publications and forums repeatedly over a number of years as one of the most influential individuals in the world. And without further ado, may I call Professor Steven Pinker to the podium to deliver the second annual Darwin lecture entitled The Evolution of Rationality and Irrationality. Steve, please.